This is your Estuary Report. I'm Jerry Kay. James Walter is the Harbormaster at the South Beach Harbor in San Francisco, California. His education and outreach efforts, focusing on environmental stewardship, have been a high priority for him. Through direct interaction, newsletter distribution to berthers, display of informational material, and strict enforcement of rules and regulations, James and his staff at South Beach Harbor have promoted environmentally sound practices for years. This type of experience and education to improving water quality for all users is a resource that the San Francisco Estuary Partnership wants to share with the broader boating community. I asked James if he has specific concerns as it relates to water quality and the environment.
I have a lot of concerns, and it's always foremost in our thoughts, especially in a confined area like a harbor. So some of my concerns that I find more difficult to work with is educating boaters about maintenance and repair. What's allowed, what isn't allowed, and what is allowed, how it should be handled, how they should prevent anything from going in the water. And there are methods that you can use, and we constantly educate them to use them, and we require them to use those methods. I'm concerned about trash in the water. I think this is an area that boaters have been a little remiss in their efforts. I think they don't realize that when they take food items and things like that out on the bay to enjoy themselves, that an empty wrapper is going to blow off. Their boat's moving, so they're creating wind in addition to the wind that's already on the bay, and it goes in the water. And this is, as we all know from newsreels and all the time now, it creates a big problem. And it's a big concern it's altering or damaging the eco-environment of water. And I'm concerned about sewage and bilge discharge. These are the most serious infractions. These elements have no business being in the water. Of course, neither does trash, but they're more serious in nature. They have a more harmful effect even.
Is it a lack of understanding, or is it the view that it's a big bay, a large ocean? It's all going to be okay in the end.
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think mostly it's the latter. What you said is like, what kind of harm can it do? Look at the amount of water we have here and the small amount that I'm discharging. It shouldn't do anything. But when you look out on the bay on a nice weekend and see 1,000 or more vessels out there enjoying themselves, it does become an issue. It becomes a big problem. And we all have to be aware of it, and they need to be aware of it. And the sad part is that it's totally preventable and unnecessary. There's easy ways. All the harbors are working to try to give them the facilities to dispose of this stuff properly and legally.
What is a pump-out station?
Well, it's a form of a vacuum that allows you to clean your head out, to get rid of all your sewage legally. They're connected to the actual sewer line, so they're properly go through the treatment the city requires.
Is the pump-out availability a positive from the business side of view?
It's absolutely a positive. You'd be surprised at how many people ask if you have a pump out, because they're coming in from the parking lot, you know, and they don't know what's out there yet. So this is really a key question when you happen to run a liveaboard marina. Ours isn't, but I've run one that is. And 9 times out of 10, that's one of the first questions they're going to ask you. It's crucial if you're going to be living on your boat. So yes, it is, and it's a selling point. It's an amenity they want available.
What do you think encourages pump-out usage?
First of all, you should have really good signage, so it's clear to folks, you know, how they use it. In this harbor, we try to go a few steps further than that. Number one, we make sure they're always operable. We check them every day, and we are open 7 days a week. So it didn't do much good to make a long trip on the water and show up and find out it's not available. So we make sure they're operable at all times, to the extent we can. We also keep spare parts on property. A lot of harbors you find, you go into the harbor, the pump out's not working. Well, it's not really to any fault of theirs, so somehow it got broken, but they're waiting on a part. Because ours seem to be pretty popular, we make sure we have all the spare parts that we're capable of installing on hand. And again, education, letting them know to be aware that they're there and therefore their use, and they're free, and have really good signage so they know how. But we go one step further with the usage in that we tell our customers, including transients, that if you need any help, call the office and we'll send an attendant down to help you. And they take it advantage of that offer.
So you've had growth in pump out usage?
And it continues to grow, and that's because we continually make people more aware of it. And I think one of the reasons that our pump out may get a little heavier use than others is because of the maintaining them, making sure they're always operable. They know if they show up here, they got an excellent chance that it's going to be available and operating properly.
What are the specific clean boating practices that you advocate here at this harbor?
There are a lot of them, and they get pretty expansive. But let's start with boat maintenance and cleaning. We constantly tell them when you clean the bottom of your boat or have it cleaned by somebody, make sure they use a soft cloth. You don't want anything too abrasive or you're going to slough off paint into the water. And all paint in this day and age still has some form of hazardous material in it, whether it be lead or copper or whatever. Someday maybe they'll cure that, but they haven't yet. So be very careful that you're only taking off what the growth is and not what's attached to the boat. You want on top side, you want to make sure that when you're doing minor maintenance, especially sanding, which is often done because the bright work on a boat is often wood and people love to keep it looking really top notch. So you make sure you've got a vacuum attached to your sander. You make sure you put down a way to trap debris, a tarp or other means to make sure nothing gets in the water. You open your container to varnish or to use hazardous material. Make sure it's in a location where it's not going to tip over and spill into the water. We don't allow more than 25% of the top side of a vessel to be worked on at one time. We don't allow major work at all in the harbor. They have to take it to a licensed boat yard. You can't pull an engine, for example, in the harbor. One of the worst things, especially in a harbor environment where people are having hazardous material working on their boat or petroleum products, is spill in the water. So we have a prevention and containment plan, and our staff is actually highly trained to respond immediately, and we have containment materials located strategically on the dock so they're close at hand. We mark it so that if it's after hours and a boater sees it, maybe they can lend a hand and get it contained. We're very cognizant of that all the time. We educate our boaters that you're our eyes and ears. There are more of you than there are of us. So when you suspect we have a petroleum product in the water, notify us as soon as possible. Quick response is crucial.
Part of the containment and prevention plan is to provide oil-absorbent bilge pads and socks that are provided free of cost. Boat owners are encouraged to call the harbor, who will pick them up so they can be disposed of properly. The harbor also has containers for these products, which are picked up by a licensed environmental company to be recycled. In addition, the harbor doesn't allow detergents or emulsifiers to be used to clean boats, and trash receptacles are conveniently located for easy disposal of waste.
We're constantly reminding them the pump outs are there, use them. We're fortunate in this harbor that the pump outs are located at the entrance and exit that probably 95% of those coming to our harbor use. It's hard to miss them.
So you've made it possible that every appropriate green action to protect this bay can be done here.
We can do it here and at no cost, which they sometimes take for granted, but it's no small cost either. And we make sure every obstacle we can think of is gotten out of the way. So they have no reason not to do it, and we make it as easy as possible.
Are all the Harbormasters on the same page in this regard?
All the Harbormasters got together a few years ago and decided to take a hard look at ourselves and to see what we could do and be proactive to help prevent and maintain and be clean boaters and keep very clean facilities. And there are now mechanisms and there are guidelines out there that everybody pretty much follows and uses. Some are more intense about it than others. My pet peeve is education, education, education. Yeah, we just get it in front of them, people understand.
How do people respond when you see them doing something that isn't recommended and you talk to them about it?
The response that I get is actually very positive. First of all, they're kind of sometimes a little embarrassed because, like I said earlier, these are common sense things to do. You know, they're a little embarrassed they didn't realize what they were doing. Secondly, they're apologetic. And thirdly, they're appreciative of knowing how to do it. And they find out, oh, that's not so hard. I can do it that way, you know, and they're really very good about it. I've never run into anyone that got obstinate.
Another thing marina operators should know about pump outs is that they can get a grant from the Department of Boating and Waterways to install one. It pays 75% of the cost of putting it in, and it's a great program. With each grant, the equipment is given a life expectancy. At the end of that life expectancy, operators can receive another grant. So this isn't a one-time thing. And grants are available from DBW to help maintain the pump-out equipment as well. Here are some websites where you can learn more.